Welcome to the Food Junkies Podcast. Here, we aim to bring you the experience, strength, and hope of professionals working on the front lines in the field of food addiction. Our mission is to educate you, the listener, and increase overall awareness about food addiction as a recognized disorder. Here, we discuss all things recovery, exploring the many pathways people take towards abstinence in order to achieve a health-forward lifestyle. We hope to inspire you to thrive rather than just survive. So stay positive, make a change for yourself, and share your journey with others. And hopefully the message will spread.
In real recovery, what can resilience do that sheer willpower simply cannot? Welcome to the Food Junkies Podcast. My name is Dr. Vera Tarman, and I'm your host today, speaking with Dr. Steven Sideroff. Dr. Sideroff is an internationally recognized psychologist, researcher, and resilience expert who has spent more than 40 years at the intersection of stress, addiction, and optimal performance. He is an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Biobehavioral Sciences at UCLA's Geffen School of Medicine with a joint appointment in Rheumatology. He earned his Ph.D. in psychology from the University of Miami and went on to pioneer the stress, resilience, and chemical dependency programs at UCLA and the VA, including Stress Strategies program at UCLA's Santa Monica Hospital. Of interest to us, he is the author of The 9 Pillars of Resilience, the proven path to master stress, slow aging, and increased vitality. So welcome, Dr. Sideroff.
Thank you, Vera. It's a pleasure to be here.
So what first drew you to the whole field of stress, addiction, and resilience?
I'll tell you, when I got into the area of addiction, one of the things that stood out very clearly right at the start was that the more stress a person experienced, the more vulnerable they were to either addiction or relapse. That it's stress stretches our coping abilities. If you are trying to recover, the more stress you have, first of all, the newest lessons that you've learned are the first to go out the door with stress. And we wind up reverting back to old patterns. We also know, and we've learned in research, that the more stress, the more craving you have for whatever it is that you're addicted to. And so it makes it of utmost importance that anybody wanting to deal with their addictions be very good at handling stress in their lives. And what does stress do? Stress throws us out of balance. It throws us off of our solidness, our baseline, and makes us more vulnerable as well. And so the key here is, how do you stay in a place of balance? Now, the interesting thing is, when I expanded the work that I did from addiction to just everybody in our lives, in our world, I found that the same principles still applied, that you can be going along in your life really well, but as you started to feel and experience more stress in your life, again, your coping abilities get stretched. You have greater difficulty handling situations that without the stress, you were probably very well able to handle. And so this is why I focused my career on how to deal with stress, but it's more than how you deal with stress. It's how to be resilient, how to be able to optimally engage with the world and recover in a healthy, regulated manner so that you're ready for the next stress that you encounter. So all of these began to come together in a model of resilience that I created that maximizes our ability to restore balance, that maximizes our ability to engage with the world, to engage in relationships. And one of the factors that I study in this work is what it does to the energy in our body. And again, everything falls into alignment around this notion of resilience and being in a place of balance. And that allows us to function optimally in the world. So this all comes together in a way of living your life in an optimal manner. And if you're dealing with addiction, it's the best way to recover from addiction.
Can you give a definition of what resilience means traditionally and then how you've made it into a model? Maybe you can describe your 9 pillars. But first of all, just what is resilience?
Originally, resilience was used in the study of children who had very difficult childhoods, very difficult lives, trauma, stress, that were able to manage and recover well from it. And so that was the beginning part of the study in resilience. But resilience has morphed into, how do you recover from stress? Resilience has morphed into, when you are engaging in anything that throws you out of balance, how quickly and how capable are you to recover that place of balance? Now, what I've done with this model of resilience is I've expanded it, because I can be very good at recovering from stress. And we could say, okay, then you're resilient. But what if I have certain emotional wounding that results in me experiencing more situations as stressful than someone else because of my history, because of my vulnerability? Then even if I can recover quickly from a stress, if I'm overloading myself with more stress because of my emotional wounding, then I'm going to quickly lose that ability to be resilient. And so my model incorporates recovery in a sense of emotional wounding. My model covers everything that goes into optimal functioning. And so my model is more of optimal functioning than the traditional classical notion of resilience. And that's where I've come up with my 9 pillars, because each one plays a role in optimal functioning.
Tell us about the 9 pillars.
I'm happy to. The first 3 pillars have to do with relationship. And so the first one has to do with the most important relationship in your life, no matter who you are, and that's your relationship with yourself. How do you treat yourself? How do you talk to yourself? How kind and good are you, or critical and judgmental? A key component of resilience. The second one is relationship with others. Are you able to set healthy boundaries? Are you able to make connections that offer nurturing and support? The third has to do with relationship with something greater. And this can be community, it can be spirituality, it can be a purpose and meaning in life, but it's something that connects you with the larger community. The next 3 have to do with organismic balance and mastery. So the 4th pillar is physical balance and mastery. And most people, when they think of stress management, this is what they're thinking of. Can I relax? Do I have the ability to relax? Do I have the ability to restore balance to the 2 branches of my nervous system after a stressful encounter? So stress activates the sympathetic branch.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Vera, but if you most people think about their day, we keep encountering one stress after another. And each encounter with stress activates the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. But how many times in your day do you have signals that say you're safe, you can relax? I don't have any in my day. So most people, they're activating sympathetic without engaging the recovery branch. And so they keep ratcheting up the activation of their nervous system, using up the resources of their body and stretching the resources and depleting them.
Yeah,
and this happens on a daily basis. So, for example, one of the biggest areas right now in the search engines of today is burnout. People are searching burnout. What's going on with burnout? And I like to say that burnout isn't about an illness that's happening to those people over there. We are all in one level or other of burnout, the continuum of burnout, where burnout is when you activate the sympathetic more than you activate the parasympathetic. So that's the fourth pillar.
It just reminds me of how when we are in conversation with each other, you say, "How are you?" The most common response is stressed. there's never a question of how are you coping with your stress. The implication is you're stressed, and the answer is yes, I am.
And that's exactly right, Vera, where people think that life is stressful.
Yeah.
It's like we throw up our hands because how do we stay in a place of balance? And when we think of all the things that it requires, for most people, it's overwhelming. And we can get into how you deal with the overwhelm so you're not overwhelmed and you can take the appropriate steps forward. But the fifth pillar is cognitive balance and mastery. And this is your thinking. Do you wake up in the morning and you think of what can go wrong? What might the problems be? Where's the danger coming from? So that's a negative mindset that already sets you down the path of more stress in your day. Or do you wake up in the morning and think, oh, I'm looking forward to today. I'm looking forward to this challenge over here and how I'm going to handle this challenge. That makes all the difference in the world, that difference in mindset. Cognitive balance and mastery is also a growth mindset. If you notice a shortcoming, instead of saying, oh, I guess I can't do it, you say, what do I need to learn so I could do it or do it better? So these are all part of the cognitive balance and mastery. If I got a negative thought stuck in my head, how easily can I let go of it? Or does that kind of command my attention without my having any control over it? The sixth is emotional balance and mastery. So emotional wounding sets us up to be more vulnerable to stress and the consequences of stress. So emotional balance and mastery is recognizing emotional upsets, emotional wounding, and doing something to restore balance, to do whatever healing is necessary so that you're not emotionally reactive. If you have dealing with a problem, you want to deal with it with a clear head. If you get emotionally engaged, emotions are important and good and have their place. But if you're trying to think clearly, emotionally reacting to a situation actually impairs your ability to problem solve. Okay. The last three have to do with how we engage in the world. Okay, so again, my model covers everything that is involved in optimal functioning. So the seventh pillar is presence. Am I aware of my environment, my surroundings? If I engage with you, am I able to pay attention to your facial expressions, to be able to read you and understand where you're coming from? Okay, presence is also what's my presence that I project into my environment. When I walk into a room, do I have a presence that says I'm approachable, or do I have a presence that says, oh, this guy, he makes me a little nervous because of maybe my facial expression? So that's the seventh pillar. The eighth is flexibility. And here we're talking about if there's an obstacle in my path to my goal, can I adjust my path to get around the obstacle? Or can I adjust my goal because my first goal is not as attainable given circumstances? So now can I make an adjustment to be more successful? It also means flexibility of perspective. Can I put myself in your shoes? Can I see a situation from somebody else's position angle? Sometimes one of the exercises I give people when they're stuck is I say, identify someone that you respect, someone who, when you look at them and when you see them in action, they handle whatever situations are in front of them. And I want you to imagine putting yourself into their shoes, being them, and trying to handle the problem you're handling. How would they do that? So that's flexibility of perspective. And then the final pillar, my ninth pillar, I call power, and I define it as the ability to get things done. So here we're talking about having the courage to overcome your fears. So a lot of people get stuck in taking action. They procrastinate because they're worried about the result, because they are feeling fearful of taking action. So can you raise your courage high enough so that you take action in spite of fear? It's not about waiting until you don't have any fear to take action. It's the fear is there, but I have the courage to deal with it anyway. So the ninth pillar is focus, concentration, being organized, setting goals, and having courage. And that's the comprehensive model of resilience.
So can you give an example of how that would play out in action? And can I give you an example? And would you show us how it would work? So
absolutely.
In our field, we're in the field of food addiction. So basically, it's people who eat foods that they know they shouldn't eat, but they struggle. A typical scenario, middle-aged woman lives with family who don't really respect her new way of living, which is sugar-free, going to get rid of the refined carbohydrates and eat well, who gets up to day 10 and then slips because of something that's happened in the household. She's come back repeatedly saying, I almost get it. I really want this, but I just can't do it. So how would this model help?
Well, first of all, the model would say, you never say, I just can't do it, because you're already sending yourself down the wrong path. The resilience model would say that it's a comprehensive model, and you want to address each of the 9 pillars if you want to be successful.
And you have to address all of them.
You have to address all of them. So, for example, the first pillar would begin, most of us have a critical internal voice.
Yes, especially in this field of addiction. Absolutely.
But it's actually universal, really. And so the first thing is to recognize the old pattern. And we first of all label it as the old pattern. Okay. I judge myself all the time.
I'm a failure.
I put myself down. Okay. We want to identify what a healthy internal voice would do and say. So I begin by saying the qualities of a healthy internal parent are coming from a place of love, compassion, acceptance, support, care, and joy. Okay. So that's the model of what you want to install in yourself to replace the existing internal parent, which doesn't serve you. And some people, and most people, have some difficulty with this because they feel a loyalty to the old pattern. But it's time to say, it doesn't serve me, it doesn't work for me, and I can't be loyal to anything that doesn't serve me, that's not good for me. So it's making that decision. That's the first step, making that decision that perspective, the perspective of how you've been treating yourself, it doesn't work, and you have to start saying no to it. And you have to start noticing every time you begin to be critical of yourself, okay? And whenever you notice, so it's just a 3-step process. No, this doesn't serve me, and I'm going to treat myself from a healthy perspective. And we begin by saying to ourselves, I love you. I have compassion toward you for the struggle that you're going through, but I accept you, and I accept you even with your mistakes, even with your slip-ups, because this is difficult. But as long as you come from this place of love and acceptance, we will get to where we need to get to. The second pillar is setting healthy boundaries, which means other people can be critical, other people can be judgmental, but I cannot take in those messages. So just as I don't talk to myself negatively, critically, judgmentally, I will not allow within my psychological boundary that information. So we're setting some black and whites in a world that's rarely black and white that can help guide you in the right direction. Okay. If you have some form of spirituality and beliefs that can support this, community groups that can support this as well.
Yeah.
Now we go into the next 3, and I've already said that when you're not in a place of balance, your newest learning is the first to go. If you're not in this place of balance, you have more craving. So it points to the importance of doing some kind of regular practice of retraining your nervous system into this place of balance. There are no shortcuts. You have to find 5, 10, 15 minutes each day to practice some form of relaxation training so you get good at recovering from stress, so you get good at keeping your nervous system in a place of balance. And this is something that you practice throughout the day so that when the challenges come and the food may be at an event that you're at, you're more able to say no because you're in this place of balance. You're not in this needy position. You're not in this craving position. So a lot of it depends on being prepared. In the moment where there's a lot of emotional energy, it's more difficult to resist than if you plan ahead and you practice being in this state of balance. One of the things I do with people with eating problems, as well as other addictions, is that we will practice going into this place of balance. And then I will have the person imagine being in a challenging situation where the food is there.
Yeah.
But I'm having them think about it while they're in this place of balance and dress rehearsal the situation from this place of balance. So they practice saying no. They practice, I'm calm, I'm relaxed, I want to stay in this calm, relaxed place. I'm not going to go for that, whatever the food might be. So it's dress rehearsal as well as practicing being in this place of balance. Cognitively, it's about thinking positively. It's about watching your language. So a lot of times people will say, oh, that's difficult. And I'll say to them, as soon as you say that's difficult, you actually make it more difficult because you're already sending yourself down this path of bracing yourself for the difficulty rather than a different path in which you say, okay, I'm going to be creative here. I'm going to figure out a solution. I'm going to work at it and not use the word difficult because it doesn't matter. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it no matter whether it's difficult or not. Let me not put that label on it that actually makes it appear more difficult than it has to be. So each of the pillars plays a role in dealing with those kinds of situations. Very important if you slip up to be compassionate. Again, back to the loving, compassionate inner voice we're working to create. That's how you want to treat yourself if you make a mistake, to be less likely to make that mistake again. If you put yourself down, you actually make yourself less capable.
As you've been describing this in the field of addiction, I just keep thinking the people who manage to stay sober, free from their addictive substance the longest, often are in a 12-step program. So would you say that the 12-step program is an example of your resilience model? It seems to have a number of the features built in. What's your thoughts?
Again, anything that connects you to community, that connects you to support, is part of a resilience model. Your ability to find a network that supports you is part of being resilient. And it's being resourceful and it's finding what works for you. There are a lot of people that I recommend the 12-step program to a lot of people because we all need that support.
What are some of the biggest myths about resilience that you see harming people today?
What I would say about myths is that we get the message. Too much stress is definitely bad for all of us, but it clouds the fact that some stress is not only okay, but serves us in many ways. For example, if you or anybody in your audience thinks about any of their successes in life, I guarantee you they've all been associated with stress.
Mm-hmm.
Any big presentation, any test, any deadline, anything that leads you to the next level are going to be stressful experiences. And so what goes on in our brains, we have put together automatically stress and success. They've been connected. And so one of my early mentors, one of the pioneers in neuroscience, Donald Hebb, coined the phrase, neurons that fire together wire together.
I've heard that phrase many times.
Yeah. And so we are designed as a result of this early conditioning to go for stressful experiences indiscriminately. And stress is not just bad. There's an optimal range that I call your stress sweet spot that you want to be in. Most of us, however, push way past that into the danger zone. Okay. And so it's up to everybody to say, okay, it's not that stress is bad. It's that too much of stress is bad. And when you don't recover, it's bad.
If it was on a continuum of 0, no stress, to 10, super stress, what's the sweet spot? 3 to 4?
That's an interesting question, because the more resilient you are as a result of working these 9 pillars, you expand your stress sweet spot. In other words, as you go into the higher levels of stress that stress people out, that stretch the resources of our bodies, the more you've worked these pillars, the more stress you can handle before you get deterioration. So one of the benefits of being resilient is that you actually handle stress so much better that you can expand your stress sweet spot.
Yeah, this makes me think you've also talked about this is not just for addiction, but also for aging, and that resilience can slow aging, increase vitality. And it makes me think when a person is getting older, they're facing dilemmas that are just simply not achievable, like sickness, impending death. But I suppose if you have a different resilience around that, you can actually move into that last phase of life in a more positive and vital way. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
I'll tell you that for many years, I had the qualities of a healthy internal voice as being loving, accepting, supportive. And the one that I added just recently is joy. And I added joy because joy has a certain quality of the energy that's being created that I think is very important. I think it's very important. Our attitude toward life is very important as to our resilience and the rate of aging of our bodies, literally. And so right now I'm actually doing a study on this. I'm collaborating with a company called Glycan Age, and you give them a sample and they put it through all kinds of testing on the cells that it's monitoring, and tells you the rate of aging of your body, whether it's aging in a normal manner, whether it's aging more slowly or faster. Because we already know there's research out there that shows you that stress speeds up the aging process. In this study, those people who have their biological age, we're going to give them my resilience questionnaire.
Wow. Yeah.
And we're going to see if those people who score highest on my resilience scale show the slowest aging.
So that 60-year-old may actually have the physicality of a 55-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So a few years ago, when I turned 75, I did my biological age and it came out at 55.
Wow, that much of a difference.
That much of a difference. So that's what's possible. That's what's possible. Other people, their biological age may be higher than their chronological age because their body is aging faster.
So biological age, you're meaning these specific tests that they're using, but the implication is that would also fit with potential for illness like high blood pressure or insulin resistance.
Absolutely, because
dementia.
Right, because no matter what illness you want to think about, the number one source of vulnerability of any illness is how fast you're aging.
Yeah. You mentioned the word joy sounds great, but how does one make that happen? And I'm assuming if you follow the 9 pillars, it's embedded in there somewhere, but can you unearth it?
Again, when I identified the qualities of a healthy internal parent, I added joy because what I find is that most people in their lives, they work hard during the day, they get to the end of the day, and typically they'll feel relieved that nothing bad happened. that they go through the day concerned about what can go wrong. And when nothing goes wrong, they feel a sense of relief. I say that those people are operating in the bottom half of life. If you think of baseline, where nothing went wrong, nothing went right, but nothing went wrong. You're at baseline, right?
Yeah.
And I find that people are worried that something is going to go wrong, meaning they're going to fall into the lower half. And when you put your focus there, I hope nothing goes wrong, it's hard to get above the baseline.
Yes.
And so my addition of joy is because I want people to actually focus on finding joy in your life, finding joy in your day, because when your body is feeling joy, it mobilizes energy in a very different way. You actually are helping the process of resilience because your body is optimally using its resources.
Okay.
And you are literally engaging in a rejuvenation process.
So at the end of my day, I often speak with my partner and she asks me, so how was your day? And sometimes the best I can do is say, I survived because there was so much I had to do. And exactly like you described, if nothing bad happened, I felt relief. And it was like, that was the success. But you're saying there has to be an additional piece. Where was the joy in that day? I have to work hard to think about that. But you're saying that even working hard to think about that and attaining some moment of joy, which might have been a walk with my dog, will actually do something physiologically to me.
Absolutely. And I'm saying something more than that, Vera.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm saying that as soon as you think about looking for joy in your day, in your life, you're immediately shifting your focus from the lower half to the upper half.
Yeah.
You're guiding. We are probably the most sophisticated AI device in the universe. We talk about AI all the time, but our brains are capable of AI, but we want to, in fact, it's operating that way all the time. What I'm saying is we want to redirect it to the top half of life. We want to say to our brains, look for joy. Don't look for pain. Look for joy. Don't put the energy on what's wrong. Put the energy on what's right. Don't spend your day just trying to survive. Spend your day trying to thrive. And as soon as you refocus, you already taking steps in the direction of resilience.
But if I'm going to give a rebuttal, because I know it's a rebuttal I've heard from patients all the time, and I understand it. And that would be, if I look for joy, I'm then not protected in case I don't get the joy. I'll feel the disappointment. Better that I just go for what I can get, and hopefully it won't get worse than that. Now, is that just a harbinger of the old way of thinking that I need to just say, don't go there? There's no answer to that question, but I don't even need to ask it?
So it's a faulty argument.
Yes, it's a defensive
that a
posture.
lot of us get into for the reasons of we don't want to be disappointed.
Exactly. Thank you. That's it.
It's a bogus argument because here we are, and here's the timeline. This is our journey in time, right? And I'm going to not think about all the great things that can happen because I don't want to get disappointed. And so between now and that event, I'm going to be worried, anxious. Now, the event happens, and no matter what the outcome is, no matter what happens here, I've spent all this time being worried and anxious.
Yes.
Now, you tell me, does that make a disappointment less painful?
No, in fact, my resilience would be lessened if it does actually happen.
Right, exactly. So no matter what the outcome, you want to spend all this time in positive expectation because all this time is going to feel better to you. Now, the event happens and it doesn't happen in that positive way. Yes, you're going to be disappointed in that moment, but you're going to handle it better because you've spent all of this time feeling good and positive. So it's a much healthier, much more resilient approach to have positive expectations. Now, I am right now doing a podcast called Quantum Leadership. And in this podcast, I am interviewing exceptional leaders and looking at their patterns, looking at what they do that makes them exceptional leaders. And I'm calling it quantum leadership because we're applying the principles of quantum mechanics to leadership. And one of those principles is the observer effect. The observer affects what's being observed.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be affecting what I'm observing, I want to have positive intentions. So I'm affecting the outcomes in that direction rather than negative. Where your mind goes, the energy flows. So you want your mind to go in positive directions because that's where the energy is going to flow. It doesn't mean you don't have to put in the work.
Of course.
The work is also
That's
of
the piece.
utmost importance.
Yeah.
But the work is going to be sent in that positive direction.
Now, does this work for people who are suffering from anxiety and depression? Would it work with somebody who's persistently anxious or depressed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's interesting. I worked with this client once who would get very anxious every time she was going to take a test. And she'd be anxious, she'd take the test, and after the test, she'd still be anxious. She'd be afraid that she got a bad grade. And so I said to her, how do you typically do in your tests? And she said, to my surprise, she said, I always get A's.
Right.
Scratching my head here. Okay, she worries and she always gets A's, but she worries she doesn't sleep the night before. But I realized one thing, and this is true. This is something for everybody out there who's anxious and worried. When she's anxious, she always gets A's.
Yeah.
In her head,
yeah,
she's put those two things together, and her anxiety and her worry are reinforced because things always turn out okay. And I challenge everybody out there around anxiety and worry because it's grabbing onto the past and bringing the past with you on your journey. When so much of the past we need to let go of and leave behind because they anchor us to the old pattern. We want to be freed up to establish healthy new patterns. And that's the goal of resilience, is to let go of the old patterns that have a grip on us because they will never serve you. They will never suddenly work for you. And it's scary for people to let go because it's all that they know. And that's why I identified the qualities of a healthy internal voice. That's something new to anchor yourself in. And the same thing is true for experience. Anchor yourself in the belief and the expectation of positive outcomes, and that will move you more readily in that direction. For example, I'm less likely to procrastinate if I think the results are going to be positive. If I think the results are going to be negative, I'm going to move toward them more slowly, procrastinate, maybe not do what I need to do, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Getting back to your study that you're doing right now about the quantum resilience with your leaders, what was the essential feature then? What was the one thing that stood out?
Okay, so I'm doing two different things. One is I'm doing a research study where I'm giving people who have their biological age my resilience questionnaire to validate that those who get the highest resilience scores have the slowest aging. And we just started that study. In my Quantum Leadership podcast, we are identifying the qualities of exceptional leadership.
Yeah, that's what I'm after.
And here's the key. Okay? These are leaders who recognize that they have a responsibility to their constituents. These are the leaders who want to create healthy environments and cultures for their constituents to live in so that they all benefit from that environment that the leader creates, whether it's business or civil.
Okay, I agree with you. That would be the sign of a good leader. That would be somebody I would want to be led by. But what about this idea that the people who are actually leaders are the narcissists because they don't care? They're climbing on the steps of advancement and are willingly stepping over other people. You must have heard of that phenomena.
Absolutely. And this is why I've brought my resilience into the area of leadership, because for so many years, I'm helping individuals or organizations adapt to their environments. But too much of the time, I'm helping them adapt to toxic and stressful environments because the quality of our leadership is so poor. Because the quality of our leadership is what you've described, certainly compassionate type of leadership. And so the leadership qualities that are evolving coming out of my quantum leadership podcast are qualities in which leaders, number one, have done their own inner work so that they're not acting from their wounding.
Yes.
They're acting from a more holistic place. It's leaders that recognize that they need to. One of my interviews was with the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves. And he talked about his X factor as a leader. And his X factor as a leader was knowing how to bring out the best in others.
Right.
And he would say, this person didn't even know they had this particular ability or quality, but that's part of my work, was to help them recognize what their full capability. So these are the qualities of healthy, good, exceptional leaders.
So that would be the difference between leadership and quantum leadership. The narcissist would never go beyond a certain level, whereas quantum leadership, the sky's the limit, essentially.
And ultimately, some of the problems in our society are so big that we need leaders working together to magnify their power to make changes happen.
Yeah.
And for leaders to work together, each one needs, I use the term coherence. There's coherence within us that we need to train, but then there's coherence among leaders that magnify their power by being tuned into each other. And that's my ultimate vision of a leadership institute, will bring together leaders who have this capability.
Especially in today's world where it would be very easy to become overwhelmed and stuck. What's one shift? What's the one thing that a person should start with, the person who's struggling with addiction?
Okay. So I recognize that people quickly get overwhelmed by thinking about all that they need to do to get better, to get healthy, to get more in balance. And so I created this notion of a construct of the path. And the path is alongside of you every moment of every day. And all it takes is a few steps to put yourself onto the path. And now you can claim success because you're on the path. And if you're on the path, it's going to take you to where you need to go. So it has helped people not feel overwhelmed, because people feel overwhelmed because they may be doing good things, but then they're looking over there and saying, oh, but I'm not doing that. I need to be doing that. And we can quickly get overwhelmed because there's all these things that you take a couple of steps today. It puts you on the path. And you're doing great because you're on the path. Tomorrow, take another few steps that put you on the path. And maybe today you focus on pillar one. Maybe tomorrow you focus on cognitive. And maybe the next day you start taking a look at emotional unfinished business, the sixth pillar. You don't have to do them all at once. Any day that you're engaged in steps on the path, you're doing well. So I don't have any agenda with what people should be doing or how they should be living their lives or what they should value. I'm just giving the path of how to put those together in the best possible way. It's all in my book. What's great about my book, like a handbook for living your best life, because it guides you step by step. And you can put it by the side of your bed and in the morning, read 5 pages, and it will give you the best way to handle that one day and put you on the path.
I take it that you follow this path, this model of resilience yourself.
I find that if you're a therapist, if you're a consultant, the best way to get people to follow you is if you're doing it yourself. People believe you more if they realize that you're walking the walk and talking the talk and not just giving lip service to something. So yes, this is the way to live your life.
And can somebody start this at an older age? You don't have to start this early on. You can start this when you're 60, 65?
You can start this at any age, because what we're talking about is the best way to live today. It's designed to help you live each day in the best possible way. So it doesn't matter your age. You can learn these lessons at any age.
I can attest to, by watching you, hearing you, you definitely exhibit a sense of joy. I think you're a great model. I find you very inspirational, and I'm taking it because you're following these steps of resilience. Did you want to say anything more about your book? Who is it for? You said it's a workbook. Would somebody in the food addiction field find this helpful?
As I said earlier on, when we talked about burnout.
Yes.
Burnout isn't something that someone else has. We all have one degree or another of burnout, depending on how much more we engage the sympathetic over the parasympathetic. And my 9 pillars ultimately show you how to put these two parts of your nervous system into balance. And when you put them into balance, you think more clearly. When you put them into balance, you sleep better. When you put them into balance, you relate to other people better. You have more nurturing relationships. Pillar number 2 is, how do I put a wall between me and toxic energy, which is very important in the food addiction community. But it also shows me how to let down that guard so I can take in emotional nurturing and nurturing energy, and how I can discriminate the environments and the people who I can be open and vulnerable to because they're safe and they're positive energy, and where I need to put a wall up to the negative energy.
That's great. Just in closing then, I asked the question, what's next for you? But you've already told us there's these two, your podcast that you're working on and your study that you're working on. Anything else that's next for you?
I'm also doing a quantum experiment, and anybody can participate in it if you go to my website. So this experiment, at a certain point, exactly a particular time point, everybody who's participating in this study is going to focus on one color.
Oh, wow.
And I have a random numbers generator that produces random colors. And we're going to see if we can influence which color shows up on this random number generator.
Oh, that's really interesting. Just
So
to
it's
see
another study that I'm doing right now.
if thought can actually change external things.
Absolutely. We know it can, but can we actually demonstrate it?
Yeah. It's like saying, does prayer work? This is essentially one version of that, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Last question, our signature question. If you could tell a younger version of yourself something about resilience, what would it be?
What I would tell the younger version is a key element to all of this is acceptance.
Okay.
I've learned more and more the importance of acceptance over the years. And so that's something that my younger self probably had difficulty with.
Okay. Thank you so much. As I said, I find you very inspirational and thoughtful. Yeah.
Thanks, Vera. Appreciate it. And thank you for the good questions.
Thanks for joining us this week on Food Junkies Recovery from Food Addiction. Make sure to join our Facebook group, Sugar Free for Life Support Group, I'm Sweet Enough. Molly and Clarissa are food addiction professionals who offer one-to-one counseling and group coaching through Sweet Sobriety. Please subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in today's episode, we'd appreciate you leaving us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps grow our show and allows us to reach others who need to hear this message of recovery. Don't forget to pick up a copy of Dr. Tarman's book, Food Junkies. And as Vera always says, the power is ours.